Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Rust and WebAssembly working group meeting. All right. So, uh, RFC triage. We have three open RFCs that have been proposed for final comment period with disposition merge. The big ticket item there is the roadmap for 2019. So, if you have an opinion about what you think we should be working on in 2019, that's a place to go. And the others are for integration with JavaScript. One for allowing Rust crates to say that they depend on an NPM package when they're compiled to WASM, and the other for saying, hey, I have this little snippet of JavaScript that I want to include for use in my WASM. So check those out as well. Anything about those? Okay.
Just that I know my reviews are owed and I can finally work today. So I will check my boxes.
Nice. All right, so status updates. So for WASM bindgen, it's been kind of annoying, and there's been kind of a couple issues that people have been filing or talking about where it seems like, I don't know how often this is a little bit of an XY problem where people don't realize this is the thing that they want, but people tend to clearly want to be able to do FN onces in WASM bindgen closures, and I've needed this as well. And we didn't initially implement it because it turns out the onceness of a fin once closure makes it a little bit difficult to implement the way that the existing closure support is implemented in WASM bindgen. And so I took an alternative approach and have a PR up here, and this should hopefully help people who are running into these sorts of issues where the closure wants to take ownership of something and consume it. Any other WASM bindgen updates?
There's a Webpack bug which is causing a lot of the examples to be broken and things, so we're aware of that, although I think it's being worked on. I don't think there's a fix for that yet. This is different from the other Webpack bug which came up earlier in the week.
Can you like do a tweet summary of kind of what's going on with it?
Let me put the issue in the agenda. Whoa, it just like whatever. Okay, so that as far as I know, I have no idea what's going on here. It seems like just flat out invalid WebAssembly is coming out of Webpack. I know that Webpack does internal transformations and things like that, and so something's going on, and there hasn't been a lot of debugging to figure out why. So like some Hello World style things work, but anything more significant is causing these issues.
Yeah, so Webpack is doing some sort of transformation on the WASM. I think it's probably doing something like a GC. If Sven is here, he'd probably know. Or maybe you know, Cynthia?
No, I don't have any idea about that. Maybe I'll have a look.
Okay, well, they're doing some sort of like rewriting and transformation of the WASM binary, and at the end of it, there's invalid WASM. So nothing is working.
Oh. As of a minute ago, Sven actually left a comment on the meeting issue saying that the fix for the producer section was the previous bug this week, and he's currently working on fixing the WebGL example, which is this issue, and affects not just the WebGL stuff, but also a lot of WASM bindgen generated stuff. So it's in the works.
Cool. Is that everything?
That's all I got.
Okay, that's all I can think of. All right, WASM pack.
All right. So I dumped a bunch of stuff in here. So the first thing to say is Alex has an open PR for making progress on the progressive enhancement output for the CLI output, which is great. I left you a couple comments, Alex. I don't know if you saw, but there's a WASM pack test failure. There's test failures unrelated to your PR that are making that a red Travis, which is a bummer, but we should look into that. And if you're interested in that mini RFC regarding that, the issue is listed in the paper. And We might want to, I should grab the paper doc from the notes from the all hands and link it to there just to make sure that you can see all the stuff we talked about there.
It's linked in the PR.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I copied it
great.
to the gist. And, yeah.
Cool. I want to make sure it's in the issue too, because I'm sure we'll close the PR, but we'll leave this issue open because it won't be complete yet. So, cool.
Real quick about that CI failure. I took a quick look at it, and I suspect that this is either like something that was in standard out going into standard error now, or something like that. Because it was looking at the exact failure message from Wesen test was reported once, and I suspect that this was changed so that instead of going through the progress bar, it's just like inheriting the standard out or standard in now. I think, and so it's probably just the opposite one or something like that.
Yeah, I'm curious about that because the last release definitely had, like, I haven't merged anything that's been read, so that the test is failing now is interesting to me, but we'll figure it out.
I think it's related to the actual changes in that PR. I don't think it's random
okay.
failure.
All right. So I'll look closer. I was just doing triage this morning, so sorry about that. So the next thing was we got some Twitter feedback from some users. And one of the asks, which I actually think I need to double check if Wesen actually already does this, but there was an ask for like our current default ES6 build. People feel like it requires Webpack. Do we have like a bare ES6 target that's like no modules but uses ES6 modules?
Unfortunately, no, mostly because there is no implementation that works within today. So the default output is today requiring Webpack because that's the only thing that works.
Right.
But the theoretical future is that it works everywhere because everyone was going towards what Webpack is currently doing, which is working with ES6 modules as possible.
Yes. So the desire was for it to use ES6 modules but not leverage any bundler.
Yeah, that can't be done.
Yeah. Okay.
Not with today's implementations of JS, though.
I mean, so what we could do is we could generate like a thing that does instantiate streaming instead of a module import for the WASM. But like, I don't know. I don't really want to like support the combinatorial explosion of like module systems and like WASM instantiating and bundlers. And like the one RFC, I forget which one. I think it's the depending on NPM packages, has this table of like kind of like target environments that I think is useful to look at here, which is like we will always have like something you can use without a bundler, and like just making sure that we have that is like super critical. And like having something that's like the future with like ES modules integration and everything is like, you know, something we should support and like we should push everyone towards. But like I just don't, I mean, convince me if you feel otherwise, but like I don't want to like support every single combination because there's going to be so many bugs where like that only occur if you use this flag and that one and like da 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 da.
I totally agree. I'm just saying we got loud, angry user feedback, but that does not always mean that we should necessarily take it. But like this is something that people are asking for, and so I think we've talked about like again, I haven't pushed any of that like kind of marketing page stuff forward, but I also think like discovery of the no modules target, or I think we're renaming it to browser after that RFC. But anyways, we should just make that more obvious to people, and I think that will temper a lot of this. And I strongly agree. I just wanted to share that we had that feedback. It's not necessarily like I'm the messenger.
Yeah, for sure. I understand that. Do you have a link to this person?
I can go through my Twitter. I think they somehow found me by tagging in Surma, and so it seems like friend is maybe not the right word, but like friend of a friend, some company person. But I'll find it, and I can definitely share it. I didn't have the time this morning to spelunk through my Twitter to find it.
Yeah.
It did seem like someone who was actually trying to use it for their company, not for a personal project. So that was me reading what they were saying.
Just wanted to ask a question. Was the issue specifically that the person was upset that they had to use a bundler along with this system? That's kind of what they were upset about?
Yeah, they were upset that they thought, again, all of this is my interpretation of what they said, so bless if they watch this video and I'm wrong, please correct me. It seemed like they were very excited about the Rust WASM story and saw it as a way to get out of like the build system shenanigans in JS, and they felt frustrated that they had to dive right back in, and they said something about like configuring Webpack, even though the Webpack default configuration for us is pretty small. But yeah, it was basically just like I thought I could get out of this, why do I have to do it again kind of sentiment.
Gotcha.
Which means I think that no modules stuff would work, but they basically were asking, like, I do think there is a fundamental misunderstanding. Like, one of the insights that they said were like, have browsers not implemented ES6 modules? Why would I need to use a bundler to use ES6 modules? And so they're like missing the how WASM changes that story. And so maybe that's something we can also do a little bit of work, like helping to educate users about. Because like their assumption based on our setup was that browsers didn't implement ES6 modules.
The other thing that I've been thinking about based on like a lot of people's kind of first impressions with our documentation and everything is I've been thinking about maybe switching the tutorial over to use no modules, the game of life tutorial, because all the like npm link is kind of a bit of a pain, and like
Strong agree.
Yeah, and everyone seems to get like stuck on that. Like almost like 90% of the issues we get for the tutorial are like npm link didn't work, and then it's like actually you just didn't run the commands, and like that's just a bad situation to be in. So I think like it would be nice to just make no modules a little bit more, front and center.
Yeah, and I need to finish out that marketing PR too, and I should catch up with you, Fitchin, on exactly how we want to do that and where. But I think there's a nice story to be told if the Game of Life tutorial is like the barest of bare, and then like all of the quick start guides are about like integrating it into your workflows. But then the Game of Life one is like, here's the nuts and bolts, all of the commands, and like the barest thing that you can do. I think that tells a good story.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that was like that user feedback thing, and I will add the link. So I am 6 days late on my monthly release of WASMPack, but I'm going to begin the work of I'm just going to do a minor bump because I don't think a patch makes sense with everything that's landed so far. So I'm going to begin work on the 0.7.0 release today, work on the changelog. If there's anything that you want to like sneak in, or we have a couple of open PRs and a bunch of the CI is failing on them, I think for very trivial stuff. Do try and get that in today, because I'd like to, at the latest, ship it this evening or tomorrow. And I know there's some open items in what I've labeled 0.8 that I think I can move back over to this, since this is going to be a minor release and not a patch release. So I don't know if anyone has any questions on that.
Sounds good.
Cool. And then, so I wanted to talk about kind of what I see as the big things on deck for 0.8. And then maybe if people had ideas for what comes next, like let me know. But for 0.8, I really think we should land the WASMopt integration. And then I want to also land the progressive enhancement, at least the first step that Alex has done, if not further steps. And then also the get cargo generate bundled in for WASMPack generate should make our tutorials have one less step, which is significant since they really only have like 3. Was there anything else that we really want to get in for 0.8? Also, if we come up with it later, it's fine.
Yeah. Like, I think it would be interesting to look at all of the tools that we plan to integrate that Surma used that aren't integrated right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's WASM opt and WASM snip. essentially.
Yeah, I do want to follow up with you and Surma. I wasn't sure if Wesen Snip was being effective because of that bug in Wesen Bindgen, or if there's still reason to also use Wesen Snip.
I don't know which bug in Wesen Bindgen you're referring to here.
Oh, maybe it's not Wesen Snip then. I'll follow back up. But I remember Surma had filed an issue on Wesen being like, let's run this. And you were like, it shouldn't do anything. Oh, Wesen Strip. Sorry.
Yeah.
The names are very similar. I apologize.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we actually
that's
want to
fixed.
integrate that. Okay, cool. I'll finish up that issue then. Yeah, sorry.
I don't think we actually probably want to integrate Wesen Strip because generally all of the things it does, we have options to do already in Wesen Bindgen. And actually that makes me think something I wanted to kind of propose for Wesen Bindgen, which is like, I don't think we should do the producers at all because it seems like it's pretty dead in the water after the last CG meeting. Do you have an opinion about that, Alex? Yeah. Well, yeah, so the thing is Wesen Strip removes the custom sections. There's the name section, the dwarf sections, and the producer section. Producer section at the last WebAssembly CG meeting, they're basically like, no one's using it. It's not going to be a thing.
How long was it in production?
Yeah, like very short amount of time.
Right, so no one's going to use it yet because it's a completely, I'm mad I missed this meeting. That seems like a really, a naive move to cancel a feature that's only been out for an incredibly short time on an edge technology.
Yeah, my reading of it was kind of like Mscripton doesn't want to add the 100 bytes of code size or something because they already know that they have most of the WASM market share. And then, I don't know.
Can you add a link to this? Because this sounds like something that we should kind of rally behind because it's very useful for us and it provides us analytics that are going to be incredibly important. There's a tool to remove this section, so there's no downside to adding it if they also can basically control the tool that would remove it.
This is one where I think that we should definitely continue to emit it by default, and of course have an option to turn it off, but I suspect that if we leave it on, then no one's even going to ask what the option is to turn it off. So I don't think there's much to do on our end because we're still going to have it, but it's a question. There is a question of like, do we want to try and push it further?
I think I'm going to go read whatever is written down about this, but I think that for the health of the WebAssembly ecosystem and like selfishly for us and our desire for analytics, like having a way to know who's producing this stuff seems incredibly important. And, I think also just as a working group or as a community group, like there needs to be more realistic, like understanding set about like how long adoption takes. Seems like this is a moment for maturity for the group to understand that adoption is going to take a long time.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe I was underestimating the amount of value that we were deriving from this. And it just seemed like, it seemed like kind of like a prisoner's dilemma / arms racy kind of thing where like, if people are like code golfing code size, like Surma was, and we're generating the producer section by default, but Mscripton isn't, like, we just look that much worse. But
I don't know. Everybody seemed so positive on it in the beginning. So again, if we want to encourage this code golfing, like, okay. But I would imagine that being able to show the strength of producer ecosystems in attempting to sell these technologies to enterprises later on would be incredibly important. And that's going to be incredibly important to make this technology successful. So I agree it makes the bundle like a tiny bit larger, but I don't know, like the successfulness of the technology will need these numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I will take it to the community group. But I definitely think we should keep producing it. Or keep emitting it.
Cool.
So if we have an issue,
right.
I will mention that.
No issue. And that's what we're doing now, so.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess the only last thing for me was I want to start having like an idea of what's going to be in the release, like a release ahead of time. So right now it's question marks for on deck for 0.9.0. Please feel free when issues are filed. If you have done anything on WasmPack, I've added you as a contributor, so you should be able to tag milestones. Go for it, and we can talk about it more in the next meeting. And that's my update.
Cool. Circling back to the WASM opt bit, I talked to Alone the other day on IRC, and I brought up the distribution binary stuff that we have, like I think 2 kind of work in progress pull requests for binarian, and he seemed like he was fine merging those. He just had like an outstanding question of like whether they were like work in progress or ready to merge or not. So I think just a note, it would be good to like circle back and make sure that those are ready to land, since that'll obviously block our integration with WasmOpt.
Yeah, my plan is to once the release gets out, that's the next thing, and those PRs. I know at least mine's been very stale, but my bandwidth has been incredibly limited, unfortunately.
Cool. Okay. Any bundlers and template updates?
Not anything from my side.
Okay. Nothing in docs except I made sure that we're using the latest MD book, which fixes this bug where sections are numbered incorrectly if there's a horizontal rule between sections. So yeah, no more section 3 line section 5. There will be a section 4. I think that's it.
I have a docs update.
Oh, cool.
So I got Sven to review my work in progress PR for the Rust Webpack template, and they left me a little bit of feedback that I think I can get done today, and then we'll see where that's at.
Jay, that's super awesome. It'd be great if we could get that into the next WasmPack release. So.
Sweet. I will get it done after this call then.
All right, cool. Again, no need to super rush because the docs don't have to be on the release train, but
you would appreciate it.
I would, yes, because then I can shout it out in the change log, and that's fun.
Well, then it will be done. Sweet.
I look forward to it.
Great, thanks.
Nice. All right. Alex, do you want to talk about size profiling website?
Yeah, we also have 6 minutes left on this call before it will cut off. So I'll give like a minute heads up before we get there. But so we've had some interest expressed over time that we would love a perf.rustling.org style website for code size in WebAssembly. And this is one where one of the very strongest points of the Rust toolchain is we do support very small code sizes, but we don't actually track this or test this. And so this would be something to, not a guide of how to do it, but something for us sort of internally and externally, a little bit of tracking this over time, finding regressions, and also just calling out improvements where like if we release a new version of some random crate, some random tool, and like if we improve the standard library, like I want to see these over time and kind of how we're decreasing size for various benchmarks and things like that. And so I wanted to ask here, I might have some time this weekend to start working on it with some students, and would be curious to see what others' thoughts on in terms of what would you like to see? What would you like to make sure it definitely does? and kind of just general requirements there. So like some examples that I would say is I would want it to basically always be using the most up-to-date versions of tools. So for example, it should use the most recent Wesen pack, the most recent RustC, and so get snapshots of that. And so that way we're not locking in anything, and we can actually look at improvements in Webpack and Wesen pack, like all of these things over time. So that would be kind of like one important thing that I would want to see.
I don't have any specific ideas, but I am very excited about this because I think it's going to be it'll be great as like a marketing tool for this stuff, and it'll help us be smarter about some of the changes we make. I'm seeing FitchGen already write this stuff down, but I was curious, like, what do we think we'll use for the test cases? Because I think that's always been like the thing that held us back from this like benchmarking thing. Also beyond the whole idea that benchmarks are kind of artificial. Like, what did you see as the things we'd run it against, like the classic examples?
Yeah, I think we probably have like, I'm not super interested, right? I feel like this isn't the most useful tool for absolute numbers for like this use case is 10 bytes large, but rather more so this use case is shrinking over time gradually. And so in that sense, I think kind of like perf wrestling word, I think basically anything. So like if someone has a project, then throw it in there and see how it looks. And so we'll probably have like an add 1 and 2 and just see an absolute number of how many bytes that is. But beyond that, I don't think we're going to have, I don't, that's where I also see it as somewhat, at least to start out, more of an internal style tool as opposed to public facing. And then if it ends up working really well for us, we could see how to spin it as like a marketing kind of thing.
Oh yeah, totally. I think it should be internal to start. You might talk to Surma. The Rust Wasm they're using for the Squish app is like a slightly more elaborate, I mean more than slightly elaborate, like just math transform. Like it's for just like rotating arrays of numbers. And so that might be a nice example because it uses slightly more, like it uses arrays and stuff or slices. So watching that size will be useful.
I think like anything in our ecosystem, we want to like make sure. So I think like also like using various Wesen bindgen things like closures, and like, you know, using WebSys and these sorts of things. And then also probably like formatting code, panicking code. Yeah, once we have the modular toolkit like up and running, we should definitely be tracking its stuff there. Like anything that's kind of like important to our ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that's super smart.
Yeah, it's more about like making sure we don't making sure that we uphold our promise of like being able to deliver small code size than it is about like benchmarking to show everyone else how much better we are.
So the one thing I will just clarify is I was not meaning to say that it was benchmarking to show how much better we are. I often get questions from people that say, should it be around this size? Like they just have no idea of what would be reasonable. So they can't tell if they've done something super wrong or not, or if they've skipped steps. So to the extent that I'm calling it marketing, I think it could be useful if it was, I don't think we should advertise it externally, but when people are like, is my thing absurdly large? I have no context, being like, here's some things and like the average sizes, I think would really help people just kind of do that gut check of, okay, I didn't screw this up, or, oh, I did, let me go figure out what I did weird.
Mm. All right, I think we're very quickly running out of time here. So just wanted to point out that there's a label now. Make sure that if you want something to be mentioned in a newsletter, add this label and I'll make sure.
What's the cutoff?
I don't actually see it. Okay, have a great week, everyone. Oh,
no, I meant what's the cutoff for getting the label on the thing? Like, when do we release it?
I'm going to try releasing issues after this meeting every week. So
okay, perfect.
You know, there'll always be another one the week after. So.
Yeah, sorry that cutoff was an overloaded term there. I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah. Okay, but I think we are probably down to seconds now. So have a great week, everyone.